After yesterday's rant, I thought today a nice soft story, one that gives you one of those warm fuzzy feelings for about 5 seconds. This one takes us back to Ley, and I think the year was 1972, 73. No, anyway. This is actually the story of a friend of mine and his ship. Nice lad, you like him. And they'd just run down off their scheduled run because they had agreed to take some government supplies up to New Guinea, or from where they were down to New Guinea. And when I say government supplies, I mean it wasn't anything important, machinery and all that sort of stuff. It was paper, typewriters, some of these new fax machines which were just coming in around that time. That should home us in on the date. What else was there? Typewriters, fax machines. That's about it, really. And desks. 4 dozen. Government for the use of. Yeah, it had that actually stamped on it. The point was that his real cargo, the one that wasn't on the manifest, had a due date to get delivered, so it was a bit of a rush. I mean, they got a couple of days up their sleeves, so we weren't pushed too hard. We got the stuff ashore. He got the stuff ashore in Ley, and prepared to have an afternoon off, a few drinks in the pub, which I'm pretty sure was a travel lodge. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure it was a travel lodge. Very civilised. There was also a great steakhouse in Ley. Marvellous stuff, marvellous food, but that's more for dinner, not for during the day. So, got all the stuff ashore, was preparing to move to the pub, and the harbour master came on board. Instant panic, because we thought maybe they'd tumbled what was in the hold, but not that at all. There was a nice gleaming white passenger ship coming through the next day, and they wanted to have the berth that we were taking up. That's fair enough, don't mind that at all. He wanted us to move to the other side of the channel and come to anchor. Has to be fore and aft anchor because you haven't, there's no place to swing there if there's another ship on the apron. So that we did. Ended up having a few drinks on board, and then my friend and his crew turned in. All well and good. The next morning we woke up and there's this gleaming white passenger ship sitting alongside, little puffs of whatever, smoke, steam, can never tell with those motor ships of that vintage, probably a bit of both. And this was good stuff. The one thing you need is a passenger ship close by. First thing you do, you get showered as well as you can, because the Cosi, that was the name of the tramper, the Cosi Fan Tutti, which you probably all know what that means from the Mozart opera. We got a boat over ashore and headed for this nice white lady. it was sort of an unwritten rule that the European officers and crews of, let's just say small cargo ships, could come on board and have some drinks in beautiful, cool atmosphere. Because it wasn't air conditioned, she was only forced draft ventilation. Clean conditions, drinks, and you always took something with you as a gift. On this day, it was 2 cases of scotch. That was a lovely gift for them to get, even at duty-free prices. That would have headed straight for the wardroom, and they would have had many drinks that didn't show up on their mess bill at the end of the voyage. In return, we got to use proper showers, hot water, and then cold water, then dry off with towels that weren't also used as tablecloths or whatever, because it wasn't exactly salubrious, shall we say. And they had a few drinks, and then a few more, and then it was time, nicely refreshed, to return to the Cosi. So we took the boat back to the ship, but before leaving, my friend invited some of them for dinner that night on board. Didn't think they'd really want to come to a tatty old ship, but 6 of them said yes straight away. That's a bit of a worry. And the captain got a chit to invite him along. Just courtesy. So then when we got back to the ship, we realised if we were going to feed these people, we needed something resembling decent food. What was found was the freezers, which at most were just freezers. We had some frozen roast beef and some chicken and a few other things, and decided to defrost that and make up some sort of a stew, which we would give a fancy name. I think we called it beef bourguignon, which it wasn't, of course, but it came out rather well. For dessert, we found some tins of Christmas pudding left over from the Christmas before, or the one before that, don't know. And there was no cream, with a lot of custard powder. But of course what we did have was unlimited booze, so we thought they'd stay till at least 10 o'clock before returning to the comfort of their nice lady. So the 6 turned up. One of them disappeared immediately. He was the second engineer. And he disappeared into the engine room. He was in his glory. All he wanted to do was play with these old engines, only one step up from knee-bone. So that was him until he got dragged up to have something to eat for dinner, and then he went back down again. So we got it all set up. We didn't have enough cutlery or that for everybody, so we were drinking out of, some had glasses, the guests had glasses. We were drinking out of whatever container we could find, cups, anything with a handle that made it look slightly respectable, shall we say. Don't forget, the Cosi was nothing like a passenger ship. You can't, they're old, they get dirty, and you can't get it off. Plus, one of the great attractions for the small trampers was they smelt like ships. Tar, cordage, chalking materials, all the stuff you associate. Oh, canvas, because we had Dodgers on board and they were stowed away. It smelt like a ship, and I'm overlaying the whole top of it with oil. I mean, that got everywhere, the smell. So we had dinner, had drinks, had more drinks, and just as we were on the second round of drinks, there was a knock on the stairway, on the bulkhead. Didn't have any doors, and it was the skipper of the White Lady. He got the invitation, and he came across, and he got presented with stew and drinks, and he actually got a glass. We had to take it away from the fourth vent officer, and he relinquished his glass to the skipper. And my friend and the skipper got very chatty. They actually knew each other from few occasions in Sydney. And at about 10:30, 11 o'clock, the skipper asked my mate if give him a tour of the ship. What's the tour after that gorgeous white thing sitting across the channel in the tropical evening with a moon? God, the size of a skyscraper, just seeing a couple of inches above the horizon. And the palm trees and all the rest of it. She looked so out of place. But they were fine. And my friend got the impression that the skipper would have given his right arm to be the skipper of the Cosi. He was a World War II destroyer captain. A lot of them progressed into passenger ships. They had nowhere else to go. But of course, as captain, terrible duties. You've got to host tables in the dining room and judge fancy dress balls and all this sort of garbage. And it wasn't his thing at all. Not his thing. So, my friend and he sat out on some rather grimy deck gear out on the stern. Actually, there was a bit of a cool breeze, which made a nice change, because in the tropics, even when the sun goes down and the moon comes up, the breeze can often be quite humid, but this was quite cool. And they were there for about an hour and a half, just chatting about ships in general and approaches to port, and how do you keep these engines going, what do you do with passengers under these conditions. They had a marvellous time. It was a beautiful evening. They even had ice for the drinks, but that's I suppose there's time for it. In the afternoon they realised that they hadn't got any ice on board for the drinks for dinner. So a couple of the crew were dispatched uptown to try and buy some ice. Not a lot of it around in Ley, but anyway, they came back with 4 about that size bags of ice, which had actually, I think, come from the Travelodge. But I don't think the Travelodge knew that they had donated it. Probably a couple of bucks slipped to one of the New Guinea galley hands, kitchen hands in the hotel, and they got the ice. So anyway, come the time, it was getting on 11:30, 11:40, the lads had to get back. So the skipper got on our bridge phone and had a boat sent over. And off they trotted. It was all very nice, very civilised. Great evening was had by all. I think both were slightly envious of the others, but what do? You take the cards as they're given. So, next morning, the gleaming white lady, in the book I called her the Andes. That wasn't her real name. I suppose I can say it now. It was the Arcadia. And my friend had picked up a bit of stuff that the government had asked them to take down to Australia, and he explained he couldn't do that till he dumped some other stuff off, otherwise as soon as they got to Australia they'd all be arrested. And that was fair enough. So they loaded that up and off they went. That's really the end of the story. It was just unexpected and very different people getting together in a place that really neither of them wanted to be. Passengers can be a pain. I wouldn't want to be the skipper of a passenger ship. And those old World War II guys, mainly all gone now. A lot of Italian skippers who, not overly enwrapped with. The public room stewards and the dining room stewards are mainly Chinese or Filipino or something. The Goanese, which are, it's hard to tell them from the Indians, but they've all gone, and now you've got cheap labour manning everything. Oh well, so Lay still sits up there. I won't be going there again. I don't know if Travelodge still goes, because there was a bit of a stoush there 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't know how they pulled out of it, or if it's got back to normal. So that's really it, a story about nothing. Just a night with two very different ships, manned by, on the surface, looked like very different crews. But once you got a few whiskies and a few cognacs and a few gin and tonics and some very, very cold beer and lager into them, with some rather mediocre food, but it served the purpose. It was great. You forgot you were in a place you didn't want to be, or that tomorrow was going to be a very hard working day for both ships. You need those sort of things, don't you? You really do. If it's just a grind, Monday to Friday work, and then Saturday, Sunday, weekend off, bosses you don't like. Oh, I couldn't commute. I couldn't do that. Although I suppose we were always commuting, weren't we? We were always on the move. But anyway, I don't want to ramble. One thing I want to just say before I go, I've noticed that nearly all the little videos in YouTube, they got this thing, you know, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button and all the rest of it. I'll never do that. You are asking people to like you, and to show they like you by doing something. That's rubbish. People are either going to like you or they're not going to like you. And I'm not certainly going to ask anybody to like me. Wouldn't do any good anyway, would it? Anyway, have fun. Don't get caught up in any battles anywhere, except with the taxation department. You're allowed to do that. And I'll see you soon. Cheers.